but I am primarily the lifestyle, culture, food, arts, feature story reporter. That has been my role. I came into WS as a digital MMJ and very quickly realized that there were a lot more things that they wanted me to do. So just went straight, literally my first week on air, and haven't gone back since. So that's what I do at WIS.
That's great.
Hi, I'm Sam Bleiweis. I am one of the evening anchors at WIS. I anchor the 4 and the 6 o'clock news. I came here, this is year 5, so I came here in 2015, and I started as a reporter, MMJ, and then started to fill in, and eventually found my way onto the desk, and have kind of stayed there ever since. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I do a little bit of everything. My reporting varies from feature reporting to general assignment if we have big breaking news. I'll be out in the field during big stuff like the primary, I'll be out in the field. So that's kind of my primary role at this point, though, is to anchor the evenings.
So for the primary, you said you're going out?
Oh yeah, I'll be out.
We're also trying to figure out a way that we're going to cover that, so we're still in the brainstorming process.
But yeah, so are we, if that makes you feel any better.
But we have a couple weeks to figure out what we're going to do. So can you guys just tell me a little bit about how you found journalism as a field, what you went to college and did when you were in college and stuff like that, and how you got to be where you are today?
Yeah. So my story is very different than I think a lot of your guys' stories, and even Sam's story, which I think works really well because I don't think there's any one true route that you need to take to be in this field. I think you guys are doing the great thing of being in this field already, starting in college, knowing what you want. I did not. So I went to college. I'm from Washington, D.C. originally, so this is the first time I moved. I graduated in 2016, and I worked in television for 3 years after college. But I worked primarily in the digital field of television, and then kind of finagled my way into on air every day. So I actually majored in theater. I have
that surprised you at all
when
you meet her?
I have a Bachelor of Music and Musical Theater, but my junior year of college, I started taking some radio, television, and film classes to supplement my music classes, and also was taking a lot of media studies classes. I had been an intern in many spaces digitally. Over the course of my college year, my junior year of college, I got an internship with the brand new lifestyle show that the CBS affiliate in DC was starting. I was their first intern, and I did everything from literally do the fake 1-hour show while they were hiring talent, so got a ton of experience that way, to literally moving set pieces and miking people up. I did everything. I interned through that all the way through my senior year of college. Got a job the week before graduation simply because the PA AP for the show left randomly. I did not think, they told me there was going to be no job for me, and I was like, oh well, figure it out. This guy left and they gave me the job. So I was, in my first job, a floor manager, an associate producer, and the social media manager for this show. So I went from in the morning moving tables and set pieces and miking up very famous celebrities that would come through DC and being like, oh my God, hi, to then after the show being in charge of their social media. I then, after almost 2 years of Great Day Washington, left Great Day to join a national television show called Daily Blast Live. Some of you might have seen it. It's on syndicated air every day on the East Coast. And I was on their digital team as well as the correspondent for the East Coast. It's a national show. It's based in Colorado. I was in Washington. They were in Colorado. Worked for them for about 9 months. Wasn't the right fit. Loved the entertainment aspect of it, but it was a new show, and it was hard for me to be on the East Coast, and they were the West Coast. So then I left to become a reporter and the digital media manager for a Facebook program, a Facebook Watch program called An Imperfect Union. Facebook Watch TV, as you know, is a huge industry right now for brand new content. This was a political show, so it was my first time doing any sort of hard news because I'd been in entertainment news and lifestyle news, and it was fantastic. Working with Facebook was super cool. And I just kind of got to this point where I realized I could stay in digital media, which I loved and knew that there's a bajillion careers in, and it's such a hot and fast-moving kind of industry in television that I think people don't understand how important it is and could be as an alternative route to kind of get to where you want to go. Or I could take my chances, take a leap, leave DC, leave the number 6 market in the country and a national show with Facebook, and move to Columbia, South Carolina. And that's what I did. And it's been incredible. And I think that I signed on as a digital MMJ, but I literally didn't do anything with that. They put me on air like literally the first week I was there. But in the same vein of feature heartwarming stories. Our 4 o'clock show, which Sam and I are on every day, is a team-oriented show. There's 4 of us. We do the whole hour-long program. We have a mix of local, national news, pop culture, politics, a little bit of everything. So my journey was not at J school, you know? And I think that I was super fortunate to get the internship I did. But it was a lot of work to get to where I am now. And I don't think that, you know, I don't think that there's any one path. I started in digital and now all of a sudden I've made my way to anchoring. So don't think that there's one linear track, that you have to be a general assignment reporter and then you go to, you know, maybe a weekend fill-in anchor and then you do this. There is so much worth in that, but there's also so much else out there. It took me a little bit longer to get to where I wanted, but I think that I am a better all-around reporter for it. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think what's important to note about your story too is Madeline has learned a lot of the journalism along the way, and it's just a good reminder that journalism is not like, it's not a life calling. It's not something that like you have to be born with. It's something that you can learn. It's a learned skill. It's a learned practice. And I think Madeline's a great example of someone who has done that really well. I have gone definitely the traditional route in many ways. So I went to school at Emory in Atlanta, and I went in thinking I was going to be pre-med, and then I thought I was going to be pre-law, and then I was like, what the heck am I going to do with myself? And so I kind of found journalism on a whim. So I was studying history and political science, and thinking at that point that I was going to law school. And I just happened to take a journalism class because I love to write. I love to read and I love to write. So I found journalism on a whim. That was my junior year. And ever since then, I ran with it. I interned at 3 different places. I'm from Gainesville, Florida. Any Floridians? No Floridians? Floridian, where are you from? Miami. Okay, so not Gainesville, but much warmer and nicer than Gainesville. Gainesville's swampy. It's not nice. So I interned at the local affiliate there in Gainesville. And then I interned at a big station in Atlanta, WSB in Atlanta. Anybody from Atlanta? No, maybe. Big station there. And then I was sideline reporting for a local soccer team, basically a minor league team. So from there, I went to Binghamton, New York, beautiful Market 167. And I took an anchor / reporter / producer job. All of the things in one. I spent a year there, and then I came here in June of 2015. And I took a job as a reporter MMJ thinking, I'm gonna get my live experience and get the heck out of Columbia, South Carolina. And 5 years later, I'm still here. But I will say that while my journey in the sense of, you know, the track of journalism has been traditional, I think my track in terms of anchoring has been non-traditional. Mm-hmm. So straight out of school, you know, I took an anchoring job, and honestly, I'll be straight up with you, I think they thought I looked the part at 21 years old. So for a small market. So I kind of got lucky in that sense. I chopped all my hair off and I had the little anchor bob going, and so I looked the part and I kind of had to fill the shoes. So I spent a year in New York thinking, okay, maybe I want to like learn how to really report. Like I probably need to learn how to actually do that before I, you know, settle down as a true anchor. So then I came here thinking, I'm going to do that. I'm going to, you know, get all of this reporting experience. And I have in a lot of ways, but pretty much immediately found myself back on the desk again. So I found myself on the desk because when I got here, as you all well know, in June of 2015, we had the Charleston church shooting. In July of 2015, we had the Confederate flag removal. In October of 2015, we had the flood. So that was big year for South Carolina. So I had basically 6 months of just true, like, you know, feet to the fire. Like you do it or you don't. And that was a period of time where I remember thinking, you know, I'm either gonna like rise to the occasion, or I'm gonna like find another job and find something else to do. And probably the biggest moment for me was in October when we had the flood. My news director at the time, who had hired me, who knew I had done some anchoring before, basically said to me, hey, your anchors are not in yet. We don't have anybody to go down to the desk, and we need you to go anchor this coverage. And I was like, okay, so like for how long? They're like, we don't know. Okay. So I vividly remember walking down to the studio and getting down there, and I'm in like, ladies, my Amazon dress that I have ordered, and I'm like, I'm trying to play the part, right? And I remember walking down to the studio, and I said to the floor director, I go, okay, so like scripts are like iPad. I'm like, okay, iPad. Prompter, do we have prompter? And they're like, prompter? You're not gonna have prompter. This is live continuous coverage of a flood. Like, what are you talking about, prompter? And I just remember them counting me in and being like, what the heck am I gonna do? Like, how am I even gonna speak? Like, what am I gonna talk about? And I was like, I either am going to like have a full-blown meltdown on local television, which, could be my claim to fame, or I'm going to just figure it out as I go. So it was messy, it wasn't perfect. This wasn't like some, hero movie where I just nailed it. I did well enough, and I learned a lot from that. And I was on that day for 5 hours. Yeah. And then they basically pulled me off the desk, and then I went out in the flood. So I got my time out in the flood. Don't you worry. So I pretty much after that kind of was filling in pretty routinely, and then around a year after I got to WIS, I was anchoring the 4, the 6, and the 7. We had lost an anchor. And so that's kind of how I got to my role at WIS. Since then, I have covered everything from hurricanes to gubernatorial races. Generally, when it comes to big events, I'm out in the field. I'm kind of a walk and talk kind of reporter, so I like to be in the mix and out in the fray. But there have been many times where I have been on the desk as well. So I've anchored, you guys know the Tim Jones Jr. trial happened this past year. And I anchored the coverage of that, and there's really nothing like saying that a man has been, sentenced to the death penalty on TV. There's nothing quite like it. So I've really gotten to cover a little bit of everything. So I would say the one biggest thing, and I know you'll prompt us, but the one biggest thing that I have learned from being in Columbia that I did not expect was that I was able to grow so much more here than I thought. And I think a lot of people view Columbia or a mid-sized market as a stepping stone, and I was humbled by that. I think that's very much a misconception. You can grow anywhere, and while you may not grow vertically in market size, you're going to grow horizontally in terms of what you can do and your capability. So that's how I got to where I am. Now I do a little bit of everything, but I thankfully have kind of a nice stable role on the 4 and the 6. I'm not running around quite as much, so right now I get to do stories about puppies, which is like amazing. Yeah, I'm following service dogs as they grow up. So yeah, so terrible. So that's the perk of staying in a mid-sized market for a little longer than you expected. But I truly have grown to love this place and to love my coworkers and WIS as a whole. So it has really been an experience for me. Yeah, you're great. I like you.
That's great. So you guys have both covered a variety of different things. What do you think is the most, the most challenging thing that you've ever had to cover, or, something that really tested you as a journalist?
Ooh.
I've covered an inauguration in Washington, which is possibly the most liberal city in the United States, of the most Republican president that there has been in modern history. And that's tough. I don't have to say this to you guys because you all know it. If you have even the slightest lean on any of your social media accounts, get rid of it. No one cares what you think.
Yes.
And it will only come back to bite you in the butt. And that was tough. Covering an inauguration is exhausting in its own right. That's a 24/7 kind of thing. So with the election year coming up, I think that's just something everyone needs to think about. Even if you are not interested in politics, you have to be read in. Doesn't matter what you do. I cover lifestyle stories. I worked for entertainment television. I still know what's happening.
Yeah, that's very true. I would say, and I'll piggyback off of that, I think I was trying to think of the hardest thing that I've had to cover, and there are things that are hard for different reasons. One of the most physically and emotionally taxing things that I covered here was when the president came to visit. This was in 2018. It was not this past summer, but the summer before. So it was late June of 2018. The president came and he visited Airport High School. And it was one of those days where, y'all know how it is here in the summer, it's hot as hell. And as an ex-athlete, any amount of warmth and I'm full-blown dripping sweat, okay? So I just remember being outside and being hot and waiting in the media line, waiting. It's terrible, so hot. And they were giving us a really hard time, the security. They were giving us a really hard time. They were checking all of our stuff. And normally, around here, when you're covering an event, they don't really rifle through your stuff. They trust you, the media, great. This was not that situation. This was much more, it was more of a pat down. And I just remember at that point I was tired, I was hot. I'd been waiting outside for 2 hours to get into this venue, which we had to be there early because of the security sweep. It's Airport High School. And they told me I could not bring my hairspray in. And I almost lost it because I was like, so you've made me stand out here for the past 2 hours and now I can't bring my hairspray in. Are you joking? I'm going to be on TV for 6 hours. And I don't view myself as a diva in any sense. I think you could agree with that.
No, she's not.
Neither of us are very diva-like, but I just remember being like, I cannot go on TV like this. And so I stood out front of that security guard and I said, well, I'm gonna just spray my hair right here before you take it. So I sprayed it all over the place, sprayed it all over him. And I was like, thank you, you can have it. And so.
Thank you, bye.
Yeah, thank you, bye. So then we got in and we were waiting. And the way they had it set up, especially when you cover politics, it's like the media, you're just crammed together in these tiny little spaces. And there were maybe, 30 cameras at this event in a high school gym in South Carolina, plus all of the people, all the supporters who had come to see him. So that was already tight. They had 2 of us there, my co-anchor and myself, and we were waiting to basically go live. And as we're going live, the fake news chants start going. And you have all these people packed in a gym and they're screaming at you. And then you guys know CNN's Jim Acosta? You know who that is? Yeah. So then Jim Acosta showed up and then it got worse. And Jim Acosta does a great job of just kind of taking it and just continuing to do his job. But for local media, we're like, oh my God, people are really angry. So I remember that being really physically taxing, really emotionally taxing, and then trying to be live, every 20 minutes or so we were in continuous coverage, and the president was delayed. And so we were stalling. So he was delayed for about an hour and a half, so we stalled on TV for that long. So I remember that being one of the longer days, in terms of continuous coverage. But definitely the hardest story I've had to cover was the flood. Of all the stories. That was because we were on for I think it was 40 hours straight the first few days, and then we were still in continuous coverage for about 2 weeks where we blew almost everything else out. And I was in Holly Hill, I was here, I was in Orangeburg, I was everywhere. And you don't eat, you don't sleep, you don't pee. So it's...
You were deathly sick as well.
Oh, that was... Hurricane? You think of the hurricane?
Oh, I'm thinking of the hurricane.
You're thinking of the hurricane.
Sam slept on a cot.
Yeah.
In the newsroom.
I did. I had pretty much the equivalent of the flu during Hurricane Florence. And they when we are in continuous coverage, they bring in Red Cross cots so we can sleep if we're going to be there for they don't know how long. And so I did. I slept on a cot in the editorial meeting room, and producer had to come wake me up at some point to go on TV. So there have been many a time where physically it's been taxing. There are so many different emotionally taxing stories. Anytime you do, I think the Tim Jones story was really taxing for all of us. Tim Jones was accused of and convicted of killing his 4 children and basically dismembering them and dumping them in Alabama. So that was a really hard story for all of us because we were constantly faced with listening to the intimate details during the trial. So I know our reporter who was in the courtroom, she really struggled after that. I think I can speak for her to say that. But for all of us, hearing the details and having to report that was tough, because I think the thing that we don't necessarily always recognize about the media, and I think, where media gets a bad rap, is we really have to be the filter for people. So when it comes to a story like that, Tim Jones, and, you're hearing the worst of the worst, you're seeing the crime scene photos, you're seeing and hearing all that, and you have to decide as the journalist, how am I going to filter this for our audience so that it's appropriate for air, so that it's appropriate for a 4 o'clock audience, a 5 o'clock audience, a 6 o'clock audience, each of which is different. So
vastly different.
Vastly different. So the way that we report something at 4 when, moms and young children are watching is going to be different from how we report something at 11 p.m. when, you tend to have your older audience. So all of that to say, every story is different, but there have been many physically and emotionally taxing ones.
The show I worked on, the Facebook show I talked about, An Imperfect Union, the premise of the show was to bring 2 people together with different and opposing views, have them speak together on that view, and then do a community service project together. And I was on set and helping our reporter, Sarah Blake, who works in Charlotte, if any of you know her from various stories, and we brought in a girl who is an undocumented immigrant, 15 years old, straight A student at a local high school, and a guy who wanted to deport her. And we just had to tell the story. I mean, they had to have the conversation, we had to be there to help facilitate the conversation, and I think more and more those conversations happen even on a story where they're not supposed to happen. Those things come up and people will say nasty things and send you emails and tell you that your station's too liberal or too this or too that.
Or just trash.
Or just fake news.
That your job is not worthy.
That's definitely something I think that we deal with every day in a small way.
So what do you think has been the hardest obstacle for you to overcome to just... Journalism is obviously, it's not the highest paying job. It's taxing. It's taxing. There's lots.
We're not in this for the money.
It's so.
But you're on TV.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I'm ruining it for anyone. But what do you think is just like the hardest thing to overcome, really, to just
Definitely not having a hair and makeup artist every day.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
Really
if I
terrible.
can tell you how many people will come up to you when you get a job and go, so who does your hair every day? It's me. It's me every day. No, the hardest obstacle for me was probably the fact that I didn't take a traditional route. And I started in a weird way. But I also think it's, and Sam can probably agree with this, being a young female, people just kind of assume a lot of things about you, and that's definitely difficult. You have to just kind of overcome just misconceptions and sexism, and the workplace, the newsroom is still somewhat of an old boys club in some ways, especially as I think you go up in markets, because it's just, they've been there for so long, so that was hard. Working in DC, I saw that, and I saw what other anchors and reporters had to deal with, and I thought, this has to change. So that's definitely difficult, I think, as a woman. But then the other thing I think is just, this is a taxing and mental, strenuous job, and I think you have to be able to deal with that. You have to know how to have your outlet. You have to know when to take a break. You have to know when to say no and when too much is too much, because there's always news. It's 24/7, but you have to be your own best advocate. You have to be the one that can step back for yourself and say, no, I need time for me. I need a mental health check. I need to check up with myself and my friends in my life. And I think that's an obstacle I didn't expect so much, because it all looks so pretty and lovely on television. But, I say to people all the time, it's 7 hours of hard work for 1 hour of fun, which is, I think, pretty true. You hit the mental health aspect thing really well. I have a rule at my house, and it's no news in bed. So, oh yeah, God no.
It's just because, you're surrounded by it 24/7. I can tell you my day starts by, I get up, I say a couple prayers, and then I read the headlines. It is like immediately I'm up and I'm reading something. Because by 9:30 we have to be read in on whatever happened overnight, whatever happened here, and generally what's going on everywhere. Like a general idea of
what's happening.
And then from there, stuff continues to pop and develop, and you always have to be on your toes. So having a chance to take a step back is definitely, that's so important. And it's something that I have had to learn, like, along the way, and I think still am learning. I mean, we're not far off from you guys. I'm 27 years old.
I'm 26.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, your 20s are crazy. We could talk about that later. But your 20s are awesome, but you learn, different lecture, but you do have to learn, no matter what profession you go into, you stick with news, you don't stick with news, but learning how to separate your life from your work is really important, because especially in this job, it blends. And it's, people say, do you ever get a break? I'm like, no, not really, but I have to take those breaks. So that is really important. I would say the hardest thing for me to overcome specifically, when I came in and started anchoring here, I was 23, turning 24. So my co-anchors were 20 plus years my senior, and I felt like a fraud, like a total fraud, complete and utter imposter syndrome, like unbelievable. And when you're next to people who are well established and they're established in the community, they've been doing this job for 15, 20 years, I had to learn, instead of looking at it like I'm an imposter, I had to basically be like, I'm here to learn from them. I am here to literally take mental notes on everything this person is doing and figure out what works for me and what doesn't. So those first couple of years of being here and anchoring were hard, because I was trying to kind of figure out that balance. And now I think I've kind of come out on the other side of it in terms of finding ways to be my own person. I definitely will emulate certain things about my mentors that I that I appreciate and that I like, but I have found my own way to do this job, and I think everybody's way is different. So that was probably the hardest thing for me, was coming in and having to figure out how to be my own person and how to learn from the people in front of me, and honestly, to gain their respect. That's tough. And that was really tough for me for the first couple of years. I remember feeling like I didn't have that respect. And it took, kind of grinding it out and figuring out how to deal with each specific person. And now, I have a great working relationship with all of our anchors. Not that it was ever bad, but definitely was finding a way to have a supportive relationship with them. That was pretty difficult, but definitely on the other side of it, and feeling good about all of those relationships now.
Yeah. Finding a mentor is important and awesome. Sam has been a mentor to me since I've been here.
Which is funny to me, but I appreciate
you. But there are people in our newsroom that are just absolute legends. So it's
You guys
important.
know Judy Gatson?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you not learn from her?
Dondi.
Yep, Dondi. Yep.
So.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. So now, kind of switching it over to us a little bit. We're all students here, and we're all looking for advice on how to get hired. I know you do internship stuff at WIS, so you're a really great connection to have. But what are employers really looking for? What kind of advice could you give us in regards to, how to get our first job, how to get our internships and stuff like that?
Internship-wise, speaking as your internship director,
I'm the fill-in for when she's on her honeymoon.
Yeah, she filled in for when we almost lost an intern that week. I was in Mexico, so.
Oh my God, worst day of my life.
Yeah. I think I can tell you what not to do.
That's almost more important.
Yeah.
Because we see the resumes, and there are some toughies.
Yeah, I think, you guys are all coming from the same starting place, right? You're all in this school, you're doing well, but it's the stuff that's not on your resume. It's the way that we speak on the phone. It's when I call you about, and we're doing our phone interview, it's hearing about the things you're passionate about. It's, hearing how you're involved here on campus. I want to, as an internship director, I want somebody who's involved. So one of our great interns, I don't know if you guys know who Mills Hayes is. Mm-hmm. So Mills was super involved here in student government. She was, a part of TV here. And she was just one of those kids who was she was such a self-starter. She was communicating with me constantly. If she couldn't be here because she had something, she was telling me about it. And I think that's what we want to see most of all, is the initiative to take part in something. There's nothing worse than an intern who comes in and doesn't want to be involved,
And it's like,
sits back and
tell
lets
me
it
what
happen
to
to
do.
them. Yes. We want to see that, even if you don't, we don't expect you to come in and know what to do. That's why we have you. We expect you to come in and be ready to hit the ground running no matter what it is. And that's because that's the biggest thing about this job. You have to be ready to roll when your news director says, hey, there's a fire 30 minutes down the street. You're going to be live as soon as you get there. And on the way, maybe you're making calls and you're texting some bullet points for yourself. That way you pop out and you're ready to do a live hit. It's that mentality of like getting ahead of the game versus sitting back and be like, oh my God, what's going to happen when I get there? Who's going to be there? I don't know. Maybe somebody will talk to me. Maybe they won't. So that's probably the biggest thing that I'm looking for when I'm talking to somebody on the phone and interviewing them for an internship is what kind of mentality do they have approaching this internship, approaching their job, and are they going to take the bull by the horns?
How many of you are juniors and seniors? Who's a juniors and who's
Juniors?
a senior?
Okay.
No seniors. Okay, so you guys aren't like on the
We got
ground looking
time.
for jobs. Like you guys have
Got time.
time. That's good. I started interning my junior year. I definitely think it's worth interning your junior year. Definitely think it's worth getting to know as many people who have interned at other places and making connections with them and the reporters and the news directors and not bothering them, but like you got to have them in like your little like Rolodex of people that you
Yes.
know. Because I literally got my first internship because I happened to know someone. It wasn't posted. It wasn't like a thing. I was like, hey, I'm interested. And they were like, actually, we got this. And I was like, great. Tried to be a meteorologist intern. They were like, no. Literally, I was like,
I'd kill to
maybe
see
I'll
that.
be, no, I know. I was like, maybe I'll go into weather, right? Can't be that bad. And they were like, have you taken a science class ever? I was like, not really. So,
The theater.
all that to say, if you haven't done that, don't be a weather girl. It's a very hard job. So I think that that's important. So definitely, if you guys are mostly juniors and younger, starting that internship process. I think also starting your reel. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Sam and I every day spend time looking back at stories we've done and clipping them and archiving them. I think it's
She
super
does a better
important.
job than I do.
I'm a little OCD about it.
great.
I
It's
think
awesome.
it's super important to start archiving everything you do, even if it's bad, even if you don't want it, because you will look back on it and at the end of the day say, you know what, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. But I think it's really important to be keeping everything because coming out of school, you're only going to have so much content, right? You're not on the news every day. You're not going out and probably doing something groundbreaking or enterprising every day. So when you do, make sure you're saving them, make sure you're keeping them. And also, I think we need to start thinking about look by the time we're in our junior year. You have to start cultivating your wardrobe, your hair, for guys, not makeup, but maybe, I don't know. A
little bit of powder doesn't hurt.
I think you have to start thinking about and looking at who I want to be, like looking at our idols, looking at the people we love. For me, it's Jenna Bush Hager. Looking at those people and saying, how can I start to work a little bit on my look and my vibe and who I am? Because at the end of the day, you're all smart and brilliant journalists who are going to graduate. So what makes you different, right?
Yeah.
What is the thing that you have, that passion that you have that makes you stand out? And we're all journalists too, right? So we all know how to stand and talk and be polite, and we're not going to be nervous in interviews or things like that. But I think there's never enough. I think you can always go on interviews. I think interviews are a great way to like see how you're doing, snapping it out, do it with friends. Like that's what I did with my friends. Is I know I'm a really good interviewer, but I know that I have friends who are in this business who just kind of seize up and stuff. So don't be afraid to start working on those skills as well, because I think anymore, when you get in the door, when you finally get that call and say, we'd love to have you in, you gotta nail it. You gotta nail it. So
Yeah.
being prepped for that, for sure.
I think, and it's the idea of emulating the things that you appreciate about your mentors and starting to kind of cultivate that persona a little bit. Because as much as, journalists are outside of the story, you're not a part of the story, you have to be the best person you can be to portray that story. So I remember starting to work on my wardrobe my senior year of college and thinking about what were some of those things that I was gonna take with me to Binghamton, New York.
Snow boots.
Snow boots. But I always tell the story about how it wasn't like I had a lot of clothes, a lot of money. I didn't have all of those things. I had 2 pairs of pants, 3 blazers, and I chopped all my hair off. And that was good enough. Like, that was good enough to get a start. But it was still the ability to say, I'm gonna take the limited resources that I have, and I'm gonna put them towards creating this little bit of a look, this little bit of, persona. And, looking back on it, when I look back at that reel, I'm like, oh my God, I really wore the same 3 blazers, like, all week, every week. But it allowed me to feel professional enough to do that job. And then, you take more jobs, you make more money, and you're fine. You'll be fine. But learning to cultivate that persona, I think, is really important, especially because you will be very nervous, like super nervous all the time when you start out on air, unless you're a theater major and you're used to the stage. You will be nervous. You will do live shots and you'll be nervous, and especially when it's there are topics that you're maybe not super comfortable with,
like murder.
Which
I don't cover, so please don't put me out there.
But that's a great example.
Yeah.
You might be uncomfortable in that setting.
Oh God, yeah.
Right, so might be uncomfortable in that setting, but she is enough of her own person that she has cultivated that she could do that and she could still be herself. So while she might be a little nervous. So I think that is really important.
I'm told you guys I just got promoted to an anchor position, which was super exciting. And I'm doing my A block reads right now. I'm reading the toughest, hardest, most murdery stories of the day. And it's hard, but at the same time, I know that I can put on the person that I need to be when I'm behind that desk and I say, welcome to your News at Noon, I'm Madeline Cuddihy, let's start with today's top stories, I know myself well enough and am read in enough and feel confident enough in my ability that I can do that without having a nervous breakdown on local television, so.
Yeah, and you may have one of those. It's okay.
Yeah.
Any last pieces of advice before we open it up to questions?
No, I can't wait to hear your questions.
Yeah, I want to hear your questions. We can talk all day.
I have no pithy one-liner.
All right, well, I guess we'll just go ahead and open it up. Questions?
I have a question.
Go for it.
As a junior,
What's your name?
My name is Sydney Edwards.
Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
But as a junior, I'm looking. Oh,
Love it. It's a full production here.
Yeah.
I really like this.
As a junior, I'm looking forward to anchoring and reporting in another state. What would you say? Because I know you guys came from other states. What would you say as someone coming from South Carolina, trying to go on out of state with internship wise? How
That's
would
a
that
good
work?
question, because coming in from out of state is tough. I had never really left Washington, D.C., and then I moved here and I was like, I don't know anything about South Carolina. So I did a lot of reading, looked at, I knew what station I was going to, which is helpful, looked at basically the last year kind of in review and articles, got to know the talent, started watching the news. I also followed pretty much every local business, industry, police, fire, everything, Twitter and Instagram. I can't tell you how helpful that was to just kind of all of a sudden start seeing in my feed names and places and things that were happening there. So I think that was a great tool. And I chose to not reach out to other people when I was coming. I think I reached out to Sam briefly to decide where to live. But I think you can reach out to people if you know you're going to be working with them. Very politely just say, hey, I'm very excited to start. I don't think that's a bad thing either. So.
Yeah, I think I don't have much else to add to that except, it's the idea of kind of inserting yourself in that community. So, if you've interviewed and you've gotten the internship and, kind of the beat you're going to be on, the time you're going to be interning, whatever it might be, start to identify the people who are already in that slot. So if you're, you want to be a reporter, yes. So the first thing you're doing is identifying, who the reporters are, starting to take a look at some of their stories. We have a reporter who just started with us, and she came in knowing everyone, what stories they had done in the past couple of weeks, and who had done what in the past 6 months. I mean, it was a lot. She really did her research, but we can appreciate that level of tenacity. So maybe dial it back a little bit, but definitely do that in terms of figuring out who the people are and what kind of things they cover, because especially as a reporting intern, where are you looking? In Florida. So big market? Yeah. So for instance, in Atlanta, when I interned at WSB, most of the reporters kind of had their own little shtick. They each, somebody covered roads, somebody covered crime. I knew the guy who covered the courts. And I kind of knew who to identify in terms of who I wanted to go out with. And getting to know their personalities, talking to people who are in the newsroom but maybe outside of the reporting day to day. Hey, what's it like to go out with Mike Pachenik? I remember asking that question. What's it like to go out with so-and-so? Do they like to take reporters? Will they help me? Will they help me shoot a stand-up? Is this going to be difficult for them during the day? And learning to identify those people quickly once you get in will be really helpful for you. I pretty much followed around 2 main reporter anchors while I was at my internship at WSB, and I still keep in touch with one of the anchors who has been a mentor for me for the past 6+ years. He's now in Jacksonville, Florida. And then another couple of anchor reporters who I've kept in touch with who I followed a lot. So identify the people who you really want to start following and then show the impetus to know the stories that they're working on and to know some of the things that they did. That'll help
go
you.
out with every reporter at least once if you can. Just because you like someone or someone or like they're your bestie and they like helped you get this is not reason enough. I see that a lot with our interns who just kind of stick with one person
because they're comfy.
Like fun. That's not going to make you better.
Yeah, agreed. You got it. Go for it.
What's up?
Hi guys, I'm Forrest Tucker. I think I've emailed Sam a bit.
You have. I know that name.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's a great name.
That's a great on-air name. Great name.
Thank you. Thanks for coming too, guys.
Yeah.
Sam, a quick question for you. You said that you had been a sideline reporter for a minor league soccer team in Atlanta. I'm a big soccer guy. I love the sport. First question, what team was it? And then what was it like but working as a sideline reporter?
So it was the Atlanta Silverbacks.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So it's like, I don't know how to describe them. They're like major minor, right? So they are, they had just really started their webcast, I think at the time when I was doing the sideline reporting for them. But I was like sideline reporting / color commentary, which I had never done. But I played soccer in college.
I would pay to see that.
Yeah, I listened. It probably was gold. There is some gold of me online if you really go digging from my Emory Sports Update days. Just write that down. I thought I wanted to do sports for quite a while. And it was really interesting because, like I said, I'd never done color commentary. So I was sitting up in the booth with the guy who was doing play-by-play. And by the way, I didn't get paid for this. Like, this was like completely voluntary. So I was like, sweet, they're gonna let me, talk over a live broadcast for, 90 minutes. This is great. So it was a really great learning experience of getting to know the play-by-play guy as I'm trying to offer some color commentary. And at this point, I was 20 years old. This guy was maybe in his 50s. I mean, so learning how to bounce off of somebody that, one, I had never met, and two, who was like much older than me, was quite a learning experience for me and a learning curve. But I think it set me up for ending up doing, what I'm doing now, which is having to bounce off of people who are 20 years my senior, and learning how to ad-lib and talk to people who come from different life experiences, are in different phases of life. So that was really fun for me. It also was great to do some live interviewing at halftime and talking to the coaches. And for me, that was kind of my intro into, the sports commentary world. And I really enjoyed it, but I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do long term. I did not like having a one question at halftime type role. It just wasn't for me. I'm the kind of person who wants to talk for 35 plus minutes. So I knew it wasn't gonna be like, hey coach, what are you gonna do in the second half? Okay, great, thanks so much. That wasn't gonna be me. But I really enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed doing a little bit of color commentary, and I also love soccer, so that was really fun for me. And it's great to say that I did it, because I probably will never do it again, unless they eventually let me go to the Olympics, and then I'll.
Oh my God, that's
the dream.
I want to go to Tokyo so badly. Not now because of coronavirus, but
But Paris 2024, you'll find us there.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Good question.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. Go for it.
What's up, girl? Love your belt.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Madeline loves her some snakeskin.
I love a snakeskin.
Hey y'all, I'm Logan. Thank y'all so much for coming, by the way. Everything y'all have, like, the information you've given us has been really helpful. I really appreciate it. I want to know though, like, when you get to the office every day, because you said that it was like all these hours of working and for like 1 hour of fun. What are y'all doing for all those hours?
Sorry, that was probably a really negative way to
Yeah,
put
it
that.
was. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, yes. But it's true. I mean,
It is
it's
true.
true.
It's true.
It's a lot of brain work.
Yeah.
For the hour of fun.
I'm not like hauling logs. I don't know. I mean,
Some days when you're carrying your equipment, it
yeah,
feels like
it's
you're hauling
super
logs.
heavy. So every morning we have a 9:30 pitch meeting. All of our morning dayside reporters, producers, our news director, assistant news director, and our executive producer in that meeting every day, along with like a cast of characters. Like you never know who's going to be in there. Our general manager is in there occasionally.
It's a lot of feelings and people in one room at 9:30.
So at 9:30
It's a
in
lot
the
of
morning.
people.
No one's caffeinated enough, but
No.
we do what we can. So by 9:30, we have an order of how we pitch. First, it's our weather person, then it's our digital manager, then it's me, then it's our like reporter 1, 2, 3, and then Sam, and then sometimes Greg. So by 9:30, I have to know what I'm going to do that day. So if I decide to wake up at 8, which I literally did one time and I was super stressed out about it, like I don't get any time to prep. So you have to know, I mean, the morning starts way earlier because you really have to know what you're gonna go in there and say, here's my 3 strongest pitches. Hope you like one of them.
Right, and the pitches, it's not like you come in and like, hey, here's my idea. This is like, this is something that I know can turn. This is something that I know, like for a fact, I can talk to someone, or I can turn it in a creative way. Madeline does a lot of creative storytelling, and uses a lot more like graphics and things than some of our other reporters do. But for our reporters, it's like they come in and they really should. They should have the interview lined up. Have
I've already talked
the
to this
elements.
person.
Yep.
This is why it's important. This is our local angle. This is what I can do for it. Here's the visuals.
Yeah.
Done.
And you're live in 3 shows. So for us, our role is a little bit different than a general assignment reporter, where we are mostly brainstorming ideas for our 4 o'clock show. Our 4 o'clock is much more topical, so we do a lot of kind of fun things, and like the other day we did Super Bowl trivia. Madeline pulled together like Super Bowl trivia, and I won, by the way.
Like barely, and like it wasn't
had
that
nothing
good.
to do with anything like football related, but it was everything having to do with like the food and the fun and the whatever.
We have to come up with a ton of enterprise content.
Yes, enterprise
for an
content.
hour show.
So
every day.
we come up with that stuff, and generally, by 9:30, we've pitched it, we've talked to our producer, and then it's like we're starting to assemble. So I think what she's talking about is the assembly line of how to pull that show together, because from start to finish, between Madeline, me, Greg, our producer Adam, and all of the people in production, we basically piece together, 60 minutes of something that goes on TV. It still blows my mind to think that we can pull that together day to day. But all of it comes from just getting quick in terms of like, this is what can work today, and I know I can turn it this way. So I think that's what she means by the
the
7 hours
slug.
of- yeah.
But I think as a general assignment reporter, we've had a couple new reporters come in who are all general assignment pretty much. We only have 1 or 2 reporters that are really like focused, like myself, our State House reporter, Jason, and that's pretty much it. The rest of our reporters are really hard news general assignment. So for them, I would say for all of you, getting strong in concise pitch writing is something that cannot be underestimated.
She does a really good job of that. You should tell them about your method of how you do it in the morning.
Yeah, so I'm pretty old school. I write down all of my pitches in a notebook that I have. I have 3 notebooks from the past year that I filled up every day. I date them so I know what day I wrote a pitch, because some days I don't get to everything. And so I know, I had a story idea last week. It didn't get to turn. I think it could still be relevant. Let me see what it is. I am a firm believer in writing something down. It sticks better in your brain. Bring your phone into the pitch meeting if you want and read them off. That's fine. I just think having a hard and fast version of it is so much better in the long run. I'm a very concise pitcher. I come in with a lot of stories, but my role requires that I come in with a lot of stories. Most reporters come in with about 3. I think having 3 good stories, one of them can be the follow from the night before, but having 1 or 2 other things that might be a little bit more diggy, might be a little bit more investigative, might be a little bit more this or that is really important as well. So I would say, if anything, please work on that. There's nothing worse than a reporter's coming in and they're like, well, so I have an idea and I don't really know if I can like turn it today. And I'm like, well then why'd we pitch the idea?
Yeah, why are we even talking about it? Yeah, and I think, thinking of the simple things, who, what, when, where, why. If you can identify all of those things for me as a manager, you can say, here's my idea for today. This is the person, this is who it impacts, this is why we're doing it today, this is where I'll be live. I mean, if you can identify those things clearly for me, and maybe it literally is writing out the who, what, when, where, and why. I did that for a while when I was general assignment reporting. Because what I have found with a lot of young reporters is, I think it would be good if we could maybe do this. Like, no, be declarative with me. Like, tell me why you think we should do this. There's nothing worse than the lack of confidence when it comes to a pitch.
Yeah.
And even if you're like, I know this is the story.
Blazing.
Yeah, she does. She comes in guns blazing.
Here's the stories, guys. They're like,
My role's a little different. I generally am working on like 2 to 3 kind of like longer form things, generally during the week. So my pitches are different. But when I was pitching day to day, it was, how can I simplify this as much as possible? And what is it that I'm going to tell a general manager or a news director that's going to key them in and tell them that the story is important today? So those are all important things to think about.
I hope that answered your question.
I hope so. We have a lot of fun on the news, though. We have a lot of fun in that hour.
Yeah,
so
we do.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Got it.
Hi, my name is Kendall Smith. Thank you guys for coming. I had a question about like dealing with negativity. So you guys are obviously in the public eye. I'm not sure if you ever receive emails or hate comments on Instagram or DMs or whatever. Like, I know that's a big thing that a lot of people tend to talk about, and just how you deal with that. Did you come in with a thick skin, or is it something you developed over time? I know, it can be a bit of an issue in the industry for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you got stories out the WIS for this one.
I got stories out the WIS. Gosh, I think developing a thick skin is important. It's just not something that you will ever do until you're criticized, I think. Like, you can prep as much as you want. You can tell yourself you're awesome and look in the mirror and just exude confidence. But until you get that first hateful email or a phone call, whatever, it's gonna rip you apart. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's gonna make you upset, especially because most people who become journalists are empathetic, sympathetic people who, we understand emotions better than the general public. That's why we're able to do our jobs. It's why we're able to talk to people all day long and interview people and understand their stories quicker than somebody else might. Developing a thick skin is important, but I think along with that, giving yourself the grace to be a little bit upset, because I can think of a specific example most recently. I'm Jewish, if anyone else is Jewish, and I received one of the most hateful anti-Semitic emails of my life, like a month ago. Yeah. And it really rocked me. Like, it really made me upset. And I was like, what about this makes me so upset? And I realized it's that you can't say anything to that person to make them change their mind. So it's finding a way to recognize that it's hurtful and to move on from it. That's how you develop a thick skin. You're never just gonna be like, I don't care. No, I mean, you're gonna care. Not. So it's finding a way to process it and realize that there are hateful people in the world, and most people are really, really good. And for the most part, viewers call us and say they love us and they enjoy watching us. And but there will be people who will send you hateful things. There will also be people who will call and say they hate the format of our show. So the format of our 4 o'clock show, we just like chit chat, we talk about stuff.
They're like, I don't want to hear those 4 people talk anymore about.
They're just talking. I want
the
my news.
Oscars. It's so dumb.
It's so dumb.
Like, well, then don't watch.
These are also the people who call us and scream at us for putting on the impeachment over days of our lives.
Yeah. Where's my soap opera?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
So you're never gonna please that person. And I think over time you start to recognize, like, here's the person who I can respond to and maybe have a coherent conversation with, and then there are people who are going to send you hateful emails about Anne Frank, and you're never going to be able to respond to that person. They're never going to understand you, and you're wasting your energy by trying. So there have been people who have reached out. I'm trying to think of the most recent one. there was one woman who told me that I was a disgrace, that my dress was too tight, and I was like, okay.
Get that one.
Whatever,
Show
Sherry.
Too much leg.
Yeah, too
Always
much leg.
too much leg.
Yeah, our general manager gets calls about us a lot because we're at the grid and we generally sit with our legs crossed. We have our dresses on and we're showing too much leg.
I literally have knee-length dresses most of the time.
So you're never gonna escape those people. It's just a reality of the job. But learning how to kind of process it and like move past it is really important. And everybody's journey with that is different. There are people who are more sensitive. There are people who are less sensitive. I have sent some really passive-aggressive emails in my day back to people. Some of those were good decisions and others maybe not so much. But there have been people who I have responded to who I have maybe said, you know, so-and-so, like, I appreciate you watching, and you know, Madeline, I really appreciate you watching, and I am so sorry that my dress disgusts you. I'm so sorry. But let me tell you a little bit about what my day looks like.
No, I don't care.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there are people who be like, I don't care. They won't respond to you if they don't care.
Yeah.
But then there are some people who are like, I didn't think about that, and I'm sorry that I came off that way.
There are some people who literally just want to be trolls, and then when you respond, are like, oh my bae.
Oh my gosh, they actually responded. I think, and just every person has to find their level of confidence. And I think over time, because you're always going to have your own insecurities, everybody does. And you know, to this day, there are days where I'm like, oh, I didn't look good in that dress, or it was not really my hair day. But at the end of the day, if you're doing the best job that you can do, then eventually you're going to develop that tough skin just by going through it time and time again. I know that's not like a super solid, it's kind of vague, but just by going through it over and over again and learning how to deal with different people, you'll develop a tough skin.
The only thing that I would add to that is about, I'm sure a lot of you will all of a sudden also start getting a lot of like weird Instagram followers and like Facebook people who will be like, sup babe, and you're like, no. Like, so just watching out for them. I mean, most of them are harmless. They're mostly just trolls behind a computer screen, but also knowing that you have the power to block people. Like, you have the power to unfollow people. You know, people will be creepy, and you just have to, you know, stop.
And recognizing the difference between somebody who's creepy and someone who's actually dangerous.
Right, someone who's actually harassing you.
I mean, I have multiple police reports on file. Like, I'll be honest with you guys, I have a couple of stalker reports on file with the Columbia Police Department. And it's not because somebody came after me, but because somebody said some really uncomfortable things to me online, and I let my general manager know. And, you know, Columbia Police dealt with it, and they knocked on the door.
Better safe than sorry.
Generally, to be honest with you, they're generally people who, you know, have some mental health issues, and it's good to just keep an eye out for that stuff. But that's a whole other conversation. Know that there's a line, and you'll know when someone's crossing it.
And if someone comes up to you at the state fair and says, wow, you look so much thinner in person, you just say thank you so much.
So true.
But that's the state fair, so.
That's a whole different world.
Yeah.
Anyone? No question is dumb, by the way.
Yeah, like you can ask, like, what do you guys do about like packing a slack? Like, that's a tough
That's
question.
a real one. Go for it.
Hey y'all, my name's Nathaniel Lemons. I just wanted to thank y'all for coming out.
Nathaniel Lemons? God, I love that
That's
name.
a great name.
Thank you. So as a junior, one of the big things I'm doing right now is networking and just trying to meet as many people in the journalism field as possible. Do y'all have any advice for like how to make yourself more memorable in a short period of time?
That's a great question. If I knew that answer, hopefully I'd be on the Today Show.
What is it? What's your thing? Like, do you have like an area that you like?
I like entertainment more.
You love entertainment. So dive deep into it.
Yeah. There's also, I say I worked in entertainment television, and I did. I worked in lifestyle and entertainment television. I worked on a national show. It was amazing. I don't think anymore you can just go in and say, I want to be an entertainment reporter, because I think that that's really narrowing and really limited. And I would hate for you to search the internet and look on all these like TV job boards and be like, where are all the entertainment reporter positions? Because they're just not out there. I had to create my position. I had to create a reel and a persona and a version of me that worked in that field. And it's still changing. And I'm actually growing more out of it than into it. I'm covering veteran stories and health stories now, and I'm finding ways to broaden the appeal, because I think that I would love nothing more than to work for E forever and talk about Chris Hemsworth and Jessica Biel and like I don't know why those.
She
two
gets
came to
really
mind.
excited over awards shows, like comes to life.
Yeah, so I think that it's amazing that you're networking, and I think you should keep doing it. And I think being memorable is being yourself, and being memorable is knowing the kind of person that you're hoping to talk to and target, and hopefully just creating literally a genuine personal connection. I don't believe that an elevator pitch is really the best way to get to know someone. People will remember you as someone who was very nice and polite and considerate and shook their hand and looked them in the eye and wore a nice outfit and, you know, thanked them for their time and didn't stay too long. You know what I mean? So I think that if you're doing all those things, there's nothing better you can do. But I love entertainment television so much. I do. And anyone who else loves it, I love it with you. But I don't want to sit up here and be like, yeah, I'm an entertainment reporter and it's a blast. Like, it is a blast. But I am even having to grow out of that now just because I've realized that that is a facet of a larger piece in local television especially, and national television. The dream can be entertainment television, but the work underneath that has to be more supported.
That's so important. Yeah.
And that's like a hard reality because I don't want to cover murder, but that's just me. But I'm also seeing that there's other things that I can do in my realm. So I would challenge you as someone who is also, I'm literally challenging myself right now in that look for ways that your passion and love for that can be grown into fields that you might not have even thought about.
Right. I think your State Fair example was great. Like, you know, when Madeline came here and she came from, you know, these national syndicated shows and the Facebook Watch, I mean, you know, she had the platform, and coming here, she had to kind of create it. So knowing that the likelihood is, you know, you get out of school, you start in a local TV market, how can you bring your passion for, you know, entertainment television to a small market? Madeline was live from a snow globe during Vista Lights and just like, she's like having, you know, so much personality and so much fun. And, you know, she's live at the State Fair doing all of these different things. And that in its own way is entertainment television, right? So finding ways to grow horizontally in the way of, you know, a lot of people will say, you know, oh, I love entertainment television, I'm gonna go work at E! News, or I'm gonna go work at TMZ. To each their own, but don't do that. To each their own, but there are ways to do entertainment here. So identify the people who are doing entertainment. I think of a great example, Katie Turner. Do you guys know who Katie Turner is? She was here last year. God, she graduated.
Really tall,
really blonde, beautiful. She was in the J School, but she's now working at WCBD in Charleston, and she is their like digital lifestyle reporter. And she interned with us, and she was like,
she came out with me like once a week.
Yeah, and she loves fashion and lifestyle and all these things, and we kept being like, Katie, you're gonna have to do some general assignment reporting, like when you go to your first job.
Please, girl, like you gotta go out with the other.
You gotta go out with the other reporters.
Murders.
Go. but for all that Katie did, she always found a way to bring that flair, you know. And now she's in Charleston and she's doing this kind of new world of digital MMJ jobs, where she was doing some oyster shucking last week. I saw her Instagram. Some oyster shucking.
She was like at a restaurant.
Shucking oysters for a story.
That to me, I do food stories probably more than I do anything else, because Columbia has such a great food scene and it's important for the community, right?
We love them.
So it's all about. It's also all about the angle that you take with it. Yes. I think in local news, there are so many opportunities for entertainment and for community-based stories that will work within a news facet that allow you to pursue your passion, but also allow the news manager to not go, that sounds ridiculous. Like, where are we going to fit that in?
Yeah.
So.
And you can speak to the fact that when she came in, a lot of reporters were like, oh,
yeah,
she's not doing general assignment. Yeah.
And I
so,
was like, hi.
But she stayed in her lane, and she didn't let that, you know, deter her.
I also made it very clear that I was not trying to get in anyone else's lane.
Yes.
I was like, you guys have all the car crashes you want.
Do your own thing. Yes. So identify the people who are living those realities within the local news framework. Find the Madeline Cuddihys, the Katie Turners of these local stations where you're networking to answer your specific networking question, and ask them how they find their stories. I think that's one of the best questions that I ever get from interns. Like, hey, how do you find your stories? Like, where do you look? Who do you call? And asking them questions that will actually help you versus like, hey, how do I get a job with your station?
Yeah.
Those are A+ questions.
My favorite, and this is not related to your question, but just like general, my favorite question to ask someone if they're a reporter, and it's a question that I got asked a lot when I was going, just kind of like looking around and seeing, what's the last thing you read?
Yeah.
What do you wake up in the morning and read? I had someone tell me it was the Snapchat stories with the news stuff, and I said, that's not enough. So I think that to me is a question that I would start every interview with a potential person coming in for an interview, and they need to give me a real answer. Like, don't say I read the New Yorker.
Do you?
Do you?
Yeah. Right. So true.
Thank y'all so much.
Yes. Thank you.
We'll probably do one more.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Leah Robinson.
Hi.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Like everyone said, this has been really great and helpful. I like that you mentioned persona, and I feel like as a journalist, I'm kind of trying to find mine. I'm interested in things like sports, hard news, and entertainment news. And my question is, how do you like go about finding your persona and like being you, but also balancing that with being professional and being someone that someone wants to take seriously?
That's a great question. I think for a lot of us, it starts with our online presence. I think everyone needs to take a hard look at what they've posted on their Instagram last, because bikini pics just kind of throw that professional wrench right out the window. So I would say that, because even though follower count isn't really going to make or break you getting a job, I do think it's important because news directors do and will look at your social media accounts. So I think right off the bat, we start there. We clean that up. We get it looking very professional. You create your news Instagram if you still want to post those private bikini pics on your like cute, fun Instagram that your friends follow. But maybe you develop a second one if that's something you need to do. For me, I have one, and it's that. But that's very professional. Like, I post pictures of me doing work, pictures of my cat, maybe a picture of my boyfriend. That's it. So I think that's, for me, step one in this kind of digital age that we're going to be living in, of crafting a persona. And step two would be, you sound like you have a ton of passions, which is amazing because you have a lot of things that you can explore. None of those sound unprofessional to me. I think you just have to start kind of seeing where you can fit all of them in the stories that you want to do. Maybe there's something that you do with sports that actually is newsy, you know what I mean? Find those connections, find those weaves to weave stories into each other. So it's not just a sports story, but it's a sports story that has a local tie or has something to do with the greater conversation happening on concussions or things like that. You know what I mean? So I think looking at your stories and starting to weave them together to make a fully rounded version of you that then you package beautifully and put into a reel with a resume that's everything spelled right and it looks really nice is wonderful.
The only thing I'll add is, what do you want people to know about you? Like, what are your passions in life? What are the things that you love outside of work? So I kind of look at my social media in 3 different ways. I have my Twitter, I have my Facebook, and I have my Instagram. So I don't really do Snapchat anymore. It's too many things.
I don't do Snapchat either. Don't worry about Snapchat.
I can't keep track of all the things. But I will say, breaking news, I'm on Twitter. Community-based stories, events I'm emceeing, events I'm going to, I'm on Facebook. Life, I'm on Instagram. So I kind of look at it as, for someone who's following me and someone who wants to see every facet of my life, they're gonna get it. And it's learning how to moderate between those things. On my Instagram, you're gonna get the fun parts of work. Our co-anchor is hilarious. He's very
He's
much
a
a dad. He's a dad, and so we have just every day we do a dad joke, and he tells us a dad joke on a commercial break, and it's just like one of those things that we have cultivated and has become fun, and viewers look for it. And
Like
that's,
literally,
yeah.
he was away on vacation. They were like, "Where are the dad
Where are
jokes?"
the dad jokes? Like, where are they? And so we didn't realize it was like a thing until he went away. We were like, oh my gosh, people are actually watching this. So I kind of look at it like that. And I have definitely loosened up my view of, the way that social media comes into it, because I think as you get older, like right now, you guys are going to be trying to develop that professional persona. Like you're coming out of college and you're trying to be professional. As you get into your job, it loosens a little bit. And so, and then it's making sure you don't loosen too much and get too lax. But I think sharing the things that you're passionate about rather than trying to create things that aren't there, that's one of the biggest things that I see with young reporters. So, if you're out on a story and you're snapping pics, like share them. Who cares how many likes? Who cares how many followers?
Yeah.
It's about really sharing the things that you're doing and the things that you're passionate about. The stuff that I've been sharing lately, I'm like, man, this is not getting the same traction as the stuff I shared when I was 22. But it's the stuff that's actually important to my life right now. And it's more real in terms of what I'm doing day to day. And it's not a curated feed.
No.
It's not curated. People don't, I think in our job, people don't really care. So think about the types of platforms you're on and what your direction is for each one. Like I said, breaking news generally goes on Twitter for me.
Yeah.
A lot of our older viewers on Facebook, so I kind of think about that audience, and then Instagram is a little bit younger. But everybody's is different.
Yeah.
Everybody's is different.
Don't underestimate Facebook either. I know it's kind of a dying platform in terms of like no one's really like on Facebook anymore. Like, but older viewers definitely
Oh my gosh,
are.
so many.
Develop that professional page. You can make a business page for yourself.
Yeah,
a
that is
reporter
important.
page. That's definitely important because even though we may not use it as millennials, news stations do.
Yes.
And it's where a lot of ad money comes from, and it's, speaking as a digital person, it's where a lot of traction comes from, and you see most of those referrals from like Facebook to on air, not from Instagram yet, a little bit from Twitter.
Right.
So don't underestimate the platforms that like maybe aren't cool.
Yeah, agreed. I saw you had one right next. Did you have one as well? You had a question? No? I saw your hand.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for coming.
Yeah,
in.
thank you.
Yeah.
guys.
And if y'all just want to like hang around for a few minutes in case anyone else has any other
Yeah, so I was
questions,
gonna say, if anybody has a
they'll be
question,
here.
like we're not in a rush.
No.
Yeah, it means a lot.
Super
to you
Bowl's
guys.
not for 5 hours, so we're good.
Yeah, it means a lot that y'all came in, and
Of course.
we appreciate
Absolutely.
any help that we
Happy
can
to
get.
be here.
Yeah. All right.
Send your
and
cute
we can
little
go ahead
set. I
and
love
take
it.
these.
It's so fun. We need this.
This is
We need
exactly
this.
what I was thinking.
Yeah, this is what we need. Do you guys want to take this
JND
off?
live at 3.